Gonna be sharing with you today my Warlock build, the same one that I used in the video that I posted the other day doing the Master Demon Web Pits. Gonna be honest with you guys, out of the 4 healers, the Warlock is one of the hardest ones to play. Not because his powers are bad per se, but it's very situational. We all know that he's a stationary healer and not all the content favor his kit. When he does favor, he's one of the strongest at his job because he has so much heal over times. So yeah, if you've been following the latest news of Neverwinter, he may get a buff. Yeah, I don't know, so gotta wait and see. So for the build, the stats I'm going for are the Wisdom for the Outgoing healing. That's mandatory for all the healers. And the second one is up to you. You can choose Dexterity for Critical Severity, or Charisma for Forte and Recharge Speed. I don't recommend you go for Dexterity because as a Warlock you get 10% for free, and you also have like 2 consumables that are very cheap, such as which are the Flask of Potency and the Wild Storm. That will give you 10% more critical severity. So I don't think you should go for Dexterity, but if you want it, that's an option. And I go for Charisma. Forte for all the healers. The main thing is Divinity Regeneration. In the case of the Warlock, if I believe, it's Divinity Regen and Critical Severity again. No, Critical Strike. So we get a little more Divinity Regen. So we've regen in this case, and Critical Strike. For the race, I'm using the Wood Elf. I'm getting 5% critical chance. You could use like Dragonborn if you have. You can use Azemon if you have. I just chose the Wood Elf just in case just to power up the DPS side a little, just in case I want to build it. For the gear, guys, I'm going. My headpiece is the Raincatcher for the Outgoing healing ratings. You can use the ones from the Dragon Hunt that give critical strike chance, or the upgraded version of it that you get from the new dungeon. You can use the one that gives power. There's a bunch of options here, guys. I do run the Raincatcher because the Warlock don't have access to the Outgoing healing boots that the Paladin and the Cleric have. So I need a bunch of Outgoing healing in this build, as you will see. But this helmet is definitely a good option for the Warlock. You know, if you've been following the builds, you know how I feel about this helmet, and you had to keep up the stacks. So not all classes can do that. The Warlock can do that because he has a bunch of heal over time. So it's definitely doable, man. It's definitely wearable. For the chest piece, again, if you've been following my builds, you do know that I like to buff and debuff the enemies. So in my eyes, this chest piece right here is mandatory. The only classes that can use that are the Warlock and the Bard. It provides us with an aura that reduces the enemy defense, awareness, and critical avoidance by 5%. This is a very easy to obtain chest piece. You just have to farm the campaign of Menzoberranzan and then farm a little bit of the new one, the new campaign, Demon Web Pits, to upgrade it to Mythic. Or you can just ignore the Menzoberranzan campaign, just go farm the new campaign, do some hunts with modifiers, and you're gonna get enough of the currency to buy this one easily as well. Is a mandatory. I build around that. You can definitely go for other chest pieces such as the Outgoing healing one, and that gives Forte for allies, or the upgraded version that gives critical strike for allies that you get from the last boss of the new dungeon. That's the 2 options that I would choose. But again, for me, this is mandatory. For the arms, I go with the Serene Myths of the Dragon Hunter from the Dragon Hunts. Give us powers. And for the weapon set, I go with the new weapon set. For the item level and for the ratings and of course, the stat bonus that gives 5% critical strike, 5% critical severity. This is very useful for the healer, guys. This is so high on the level, increases our heals with the damage radius that we get there, and it helps with capping the stats. For the boots, I'm using the one from the Dragon Seals that gives 10% critical strike. For the artifact set, I'm using the Apocalypse set. But if the Warlock is your main healer, I suggest you go for the Metal set, which is just an upgraded version of this. The thing is, if a DPS is using the Metal set, which they are normally not using, but if you're playing in a serious group, they're probably gonna have to do it. If they do equip the Metal set, they do stack with the Apocalypse set, so you're gonna have to go for the Apocalypse set because the DPS is not gonna wear the low item level artifact set. So that's why I have it here. And of course, the other reason is the Metal Mask is a very expensive artifact to make. I don't want to have one artifact for each healer that I have, so I just took the cheaper route and have Apocalypse set going for the Warlock right now. For the ring, I'm using the Grace. This is another debuff the Warlock can give to the group. Every time you use the at-will, the last hit of the at-will will proc the Grace. It reduces the enemy defense and awareness. As you can see, man, the chess piece is way more powerful than the Grace. So that's why this chess piece is mandatory. This comes before the Grace. You activate just by staying around the target, man. For the other ring, I'm using the Glory Restoration ring. It gives 5% outgoing healing. For the shirt, I'm using the outgoing healing one that you get from the heroic encounters in Dragonbone Vale. Very cheap in the action house as well. The pants, the one that gives power and defense, 5%. You can get that from doing the heroic encounters in the new campaign. Demon Weapons or just buying the actual house, very cheap. For the artifact, you use whatever you have. I have on here the Demogorgon and the Dragonbone Blades, but the main artifact, man, in that the healer usually goes for the Halaster Blast Scepter. Again, if you've been following my builds, all the healers use that. All the healers. The DPS will not use this artifact because it's so low item level. But this is one of the strongest artifacts in the game. It reduces the enemy resistance by 15%. It's a very cheap artifact. Just buy it, unbound it. It works for the whole account. For the enchantment, guys, on the offense, I'm using 3 Cobalts and 1 Garnet. Utility, I'm using the Mythical Jade, and for the defense, use whatever you have. For the combat enchantment, I'm using the Mythical Lightning Flash, and the bonus one, the Recharge Speed. You can use movement speed as well. Can use action point. I don't think it's very impactful, this enchantment right here for the healer. You could use the Refulgent as well to help out the tank if he needs a little bit more damage reduction, because we can't really provide him with much, especially in this new dungeon against the tank buster and then against the hypo in the last boss. So you can use that. You would probably need to get some more critical strike with the Devil's Precision. It's an option of Overlord you can use. You can use the action point one. We're gonna be capping the stats anyway with the build, so the overloads are free for you guys to use whatever you think of. For the power, guys, Eldritch Blast to proc the Grace Ring on the last hit, and Soul Reconstruction. I tried to use Infernal Barrier, but the barrier doesn't seem strong enough, although it says it's a 450 magnitude heal barrier. It doesn't look like it. I don't know if it's a bug or not. I'm not sure. So yeah, it's not worth it. I generally run with the Pillar of Power, Revitalize, and Soulstone as my encounters, with Pillar of Power being the flexible slot. You can run with the Warlock's Bargain. to increase the outgoing healing. The thing is, you just have to be careful when you use it, because you're gonna remove your tap power, your R1, which is your soul spark, so you're not gonna be able to use that. So just be careful when you use it. It's really good as well. And you could use Blades of Vanquish or Wraith Shadow to reduce the enemy damage on the tank, for example, in the Tank Buster and the Hypo in the last boss. And that's some of the survivability we can give the tank. For the dailies, I usually run this no option, to be fair. I go with the Soul Barrier and the Soul Pact. Soul Barrier being the one that you use when people are, sitting on the same place, ready to get some really nice, nasty damage or DOTs. Everybody has to stay together, and Soul Pact being the one that you can, emergency heal that gives a little bit of a resistance on top of that, and players can really be spread out. For the class feature, we don't have a lot of options. I go with the Shadow Walk for more critical strike, and Soulbound to give players that go below 50 a little heal. The other option that we have is Borrowed Spirit, but only at trials, because we have to be healed by another healer. So yeah, in a dungeon you just go with those. The other options here that we have are all damage oriented, so we don't need that. For the feats, since I'm attacking a lot to proc the Grace, I'm going for the Essence of Power. Whenever I attack, I get a Soulweaver regen. For the second feat, I'm using Focus Spark. Whenever I use my at-will to heal a person, my Soul Spark will focus this mechanic in spirit to heal the target for a little bit more. For the third feat, you could definitely go with the Soul Reclamation if you feel like you need the regen, but I go with that. For the third feat, the first one gives damage and we don't care, so we go with the bottom one. For the fourth, from the brink, we just increase our heals when the person is low life. And the last feat is the Fate Pact. That's what gives the encounter spell the ability to give heal over time. I don't think the Hell Pact is viable, but I never tried. I can't be wrong. I go with the Fate Pact to get the heal over times. For the boons, I'm going with we all go with the power, critical strike, critical severity, and whatever you have, the movement speed, and the defensive stats if you want. For what matters is the tier 5, the master boon. I go for Forte and Outgoing Healing, and the master boon I go with the Blast Resilience to help the tank. With the Guild Stronghold boons, I go with the critical strike, and the defense I'll go with the Incoming Healer to negate the negative effects of the glove, and the utility I go with the Revive Sickness. Companions, guys, you do have to have a support companion, ideally. You can use Portobello, you can use Dritz, you can use Tutor. That's the one I have for the Warlock right now. You can use Spine Devil, you can use the Lion, but I suggest you go for Dritz or Tutor. That's just the most common companions you can have. Although I personally prefer the Portobello because it gives more stats. It gives 3.5 combat advantage for the DPS, which should be enough for them, and it also helps us a little. It gives us 3.5 power as well. Equipment, ideally you want 3 of those. I just have one and just couldn't bother to farm more. And yeah, it gives Outgoing Healing, Critical Strike. This one gives Outgoing Healing, Critical Avoidance. Same here. And for the enhancement, I'm using Reinvigorate. As I said before, I need a lot of Outgoing Healing in this build. and I couldn't afford to go with a debuff one here, like Dual Senses or something like that. Although it's viable, it's really viable in the Warlock because we are hitting the target a lot with the at-will. You can do that. If you do have all the outgoing healing companions, you might be able to pull it off, but I don't have it, so I went with the Revigorate here. For the companion bonus, I'm using Dritz, Golden Blade, Baby Polar Bear. You can use, of course, ideally you want to have the Quickling here for outgoing healing and critical strike. And I'm using Raptor and Falls Instincts. For the mounts, again, I'm using whatever the group needs. Ideally, you want to have the Rex, you want to have the Pegasus, you want to have the Eclipse, you want to have the Swarm. At least have two of those. At least have two of those, just in case the tank is using the same one that you are. For the equip power, Mystic Aura, Runic Aura, or Pack Tactics to help the group. And the insignia bonuses is the same ones that I've been using on my healers, because I do share the colors, I do share the insignias. So I go with Shepherd Devotion, Mendes Covenant to give me a little bit of ratings, the offensive ratings, Gladiator's Gold to give me a little bit of movement speed, Magistrator's Patience for the buff to everybody whenever you get a critical strike damage. It works for the heals. I've been saying that on all my builds, so it's very very useful. I'm waiting on a mount that can give can give that bonus and have 4 insignias. You know, Lionhound's Perseverance, just for a little survivability. And that's it, guys. That's the build. I'm sure there's some proofs that I can make that can be made. As you can see, I'm not even wearing the armor kits right now. And yeah, we kept all the stats. I don't really think I can show you guys here, but we use as a consumable. We use the watermelon sorbet. We use the wild Storm Elixir for critical severity, the Flask of Potency for critical severity, and as I said, we use the. Let me see if I have it here. We use the new food that from the campaign that gives outgoing healing to cap the outgoing healing. If you do have an extra outgoing healing companion, such as the Quickling, we have a bunch of other outgoing healing companions as well, but they are very very expensive. We have the Cunning Mimic. We do have like one of those very rare companions that only get from the Zen market. I don't know, is one of the mythic companions that gives outgoing healing and forte. If you do have extra outgoing healing companions, you can just switch the power one that I had for that, and you're gonna be capped on outgoing healing. So that's it, guys. If you have any questions, just leave it in the comment section. I know sometimes I get through it fast and I twist my tongue here. So yeah, just feel free to ask. I will answer anything. No problem at all, guys. See you guys around.